entered into what God was doing for him. That's such a beautiful thought. You know, God's doing things for you and me too. We might not see it and perceive it with our senses, but in the Word we see it and perceive it. And it said Abraham, he entered in by believing in that God is working on my behalf. You know what? I believe He's working on your behalf too. Especially wherever you feel like you're powerless. Especially wherever you feel like you haven't got the capacity to do anything about it. That was the turning point. Ooh, that's a good thought. That's a turning point. When you can see that and embrace that. It's like, you know, I almost picture a man in the water, you know, feels like he's drowning, going down for the land, struggling, and the lifeguard is there saying, let me do it, and he's struggling, fighting him. And you know, the turning point is when you finally trust the lifeguard, just relax, say, okay, I give up, you take it. That's a turning point. He trusted God to set him right instead of trying to be right on his own. Okay, next verse. If you're a hard worker and you do a good job, you deserve your pay, but we don't call your wages a gift. But now we're talking about grace, aren't we? It's a gift. I love this next verse, verse 5. Listen now. But if you see the job is too big for you, that it's something only God can do. Now, I love the way the Message says this, because this is so applicable to our lives. If we would only recognize, if you can see the job is too big for you. Now, this applies to all the things that we've been talking about, all the things that go on in life that frustrate us, that make us feel like Paul, weak and powerless and have inability. If you can see the job is too big for you and that it's something only God can do, and you trust Him to do it. Now, this seems so simple. And it is very simple, but it's so simple we overlook the simplicity of it. If you can see it's too big for you, the thing to do is just to say, it's too big for me, I've got to trust you. I've got to trust you. And that's a little bit scary, right? I heard a story one time about a guy, he fell off a cliff, and he's hanging on by this little, you know how you see in the cartoons, a little piece of a twig or a branch, and he's holding on to this little branch, and it's getting weaker and weaker, and his grip's getting weaker and weaker, and so finally in his desperation he just calls out to God. He says, oh God, help me. You know, he's about to let go of this thing, he's just barely hanging on, and the Lord speaks to him. He says, all right, I'm here to help you. He says, help me, God, and the Lord says, I'm here to help you, just let go. And so he says, is there someone else up there I can talk to? See, it's a little bit scary. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit scary just to trust Him. Okay. If you see it's something only God can do and you trust Him to do it, you could never do it for yourself, no matter how hard and how long you worked. Well, that trusting Him to do it is what gets you set right with God, by God. A sheer gift. Now this, of course, is talking about justification and our moral standing with God, but this applies to everything. This applies to all the things we deal with in life. If you can see it's too big a job for you, and see, I've been reading this I find it easier now to take this point of view right away, to adopt this view immediately, say, it's too big a job for me, we've got to trust God with this. And save myself a lot of pain and frustration and aggravation while I wrangle with the trouble. Now, you know, I mean, there's things in life we deal with that, you know, I mean, I don't get up in the morning and say, oh God, you got to help me tie my shoes, you know. I mean, there's things we can deal with. But you know what I'm talking about. Things that we see that are beyond our capacity to deal with. The big things, you know, the things that are serious. Especially things that are outside of, you know, ourselves. Okay, that's all I got today. Let's all stand up.